Welcome if you're just joining us. This is a spoon blank that's been whittled away. It actually came from this piece initially. This is its sister spoon, and basically the spoon came from that, and that was essentially a branch that I carved out square onto the using on the bandsaw. And I've got one more spoon in there. I think you can see that profile there. All right. And I'm going to continue basically just whittling this down to a smaller shape, and a more pleasant shape is essentially what I'm looking for. It is amazing how quickly it does come into shape. And when I say quickly, I mean, I'm certainly using spoon time. So here you can see the profile. There's the spoon coming along. So it's certainly a fair amount of more wood needs to come off this top profile. All right, alrighty, so I'm going to start to work on the tail end there. Now that I got pretty much this mostly carved out, I'll work on this this end here. And as much as possible, I try to use a push cut here. Regardless if you're a beginner or an expert, if you can try to keep the knife in front of you, it certainly helps with avoiding those unpleasant cuts that can happen, especially as a beginner. But thankfully, you learn quickly if you have a little nick here or there. Generally, you learn not to do that again. So that's the learning curve is pretty steep at first, for sure, but still a pleasant one. And it's been right now a year now since I started carving wood, and just a heap of fun. I really enjoy it. But as I was mentioning, if trying to keep the knife pointing away from you is essentially it's very important. But I have to say also that as you get more advanced as a carver, there are circumstances where you have to do a drop cut, and it is a very safe cut. It's a very controlled cut, and it just allows you to cut the grain in a way that the wood wants to be cut, because there's just like a dog when you pet a dog, it has to be pet in a certain direction. Here's a good example where you have to cut downhill this way and also cut downhill this way. So at this part here, it's quite a tough area where you have to try to balance which way you're trying to cut. And you can also see that if I have to cut downhill which I do, it's not so bad when I can grip, and I've got a good amount of spoon to grip onto. But as you can imagine, if I start to move my way up the spoon toward my hand, and then the need to of course, move my hand so I can access more wood, I lose a little bit more and more wood up here to grip onto. So you'll see me move the spoon around to try to get at this type of wood in a way that favors both cutting the way it wants to down the hill, but also allows me to access that wood in a way that I can hold the wood safely. So yeah, from a Boy Scout perspective, or anybody who's learning to carve, yeah, always carve away from you. But here's an example here that I would use. Basically, it's a draw cut, and I'm essentially pulling the knife toward me. But you can see this is the motion here, and it's nowhere near my chest at all. So you'll see me do that cut once in a while. And it's just about leveraging the cut and making sure that, the knife is still not in a way that it's going to actually hit me in any way. But it also gives me a good control over the motion of the knife, as well as good hold on the spoon. Obviously, my body anchoring the spoon there. So I suspect too that I'm going to have to start to change and cut in the other direction. There, I can feel it now. It starts to dig in. So I do, if I can hold the spoon, again, I don't have very much spoon to hold on to, so I could do this cut, which I do feel very comfortable with. And generally I do that. But for you folks, just to try to keep my knife pointing away from me. There's that cut there. And then I get into a little difficult area in here because the wood starts to change direction again. So I can only carve so much. It's coming along, so it's certainly still very rustic, for sure. So there's a couple ways to get at this too. I could put the knife or the spoon on its side and carve this way, which is not bad. Sometimes it does cause a whole heap of wood to come off like that, and I don't enjoy when that happens. And but it is also about changing up the grip for me so that I do have an opportunity to stretch out my wrists. Grab some water. And I'm going to address that area in there, so you should see that improve. All right, so all right, so coming along. So I'm going to address this side here a little bit again. So again, if you see my grip, it's just a simple motion where I'm drawing the wood in, and it's not heaving toward my chest at all. It's nice. It's a very simple movement that maybe takes the knife maybe an inch at the most. This here, I use my thumb to pivot the knife, and it generally gives me a nice cut. Some good amount of wood I was able to take off there, which is nice. So I'm gonna have to start pulling the wood again because I'm really starting to go downhill here. Alrighty, so I generally have a fairly nice curve coming down here. Pretty happy with that. I'm going to dress up this whole edge here. So if this interests you, picking up a knife and start whittling, yeah, I highly recommend it. Just a lot of fun. Just make sure you try to keep the knives sharp, and I mean sharpening regularly. This knife is will certainly be sharpened very soon. It still feels quite nice. The fact that this is maple and it's fairly soft and it's wet too, and there's also no inclusions in here or any dark spots that really create a really rough surface for the knife. Sometimes you might get a streak of black mineral running through the tree, and that's basically really tough on the tools. So keeping the knife as sharp is important. And then with any type of tools, the right eye protection if you're using any type of power tools, and dust masks for sure if you get into any type of sanding. And then continued from carving, try to carve away from you as much as possible, and watch a lot of YouTube videos. Try to get instruction. Actually, probably the best advice is to find a local spoon carving club or a carving club in your community, because chances are they do exist, and there's probably just gearing up for an online session that people can jump on, and like a lot of wood guilds or wood clubs, wood turning for instance, there's a whole bunch of people who are willing to share about their knowledge about carving or whatever it is. I learned most of my carving from the library, just picking up books. And that's specifically where I learned how to do spoon carving. I picked up a book by a man named Barn the Spoon, and his book really inspired me to, when I got home, to pick up a carving knife and whittle away my first spoon. The spoons in his book were just so marvelous to see. I like you, I never really thought that I'd say the word marvelous or cool looking spoon before, but it's been a lot of fun to explore, and my spoons certainly have come a long way from my first ugly spoon to now getting something that certainly is, we'll call this a rustic spoon, but the goal is certainly more of a fine spoon. That's the ultimate goal, if they could be called that. Yeah, if they could be brought out during Thanksgiving dinner, then I would be a happy guy for sure. So that's the goal, what I'm going for in terms of a style of spoon here. Oops. So here's a problem area that the wood wants to be only carved in that direction, which is fine. I could do it. I just needed to find out which direction, and sometimes you find out the hard way by digging in, and then the knife digs in. So we're coming along for sure. right. So right here, I'm just looking for a good shape to the spoon. I'm not really looking for any, you know, some minor undulation is okay, but I'm just looking for the flow. Is the flow okay, or is there too much wood in one spot? So I've got to bring it close, and the handle's quite big. Also there, I can see there's a hump there that I want to get rid of. So let me just address that for sure. Oh, now that I look at it, I can see a lot of wood that's not been removed at all from this side here. And it's just too thick of a handle, so I don't, I can take the opportunity to really remove a good amount of wood. So the wetter the wood, the easier these cuts are. And if you have the opportunity to cut some wood or to carve some wood, yeah, try to go for some wood that is wet if you can. It's just a lot more forgiving to carve. And then choose the right type of wood. The right type of wood meaning, as a beginner, you want to use something soft and forgiving that'll get you some good results without being too difficult on your body, because it certainly is it can be challenging in terms of strength, right? And you want things to go smooth and not to be a hardship. So doing wood like basswood, and basswood's generally available. All right, so folks, again, going back to the flow of the spoon, this is actually a left-handed spoon as I see it. You can see that, well, I'm not sure if you can see, but the left hand's going to be cradled in here like this. So that's where that flow comes from, and this side is not so much. It's so it's just maybe not as right friendly. It just doesn't feel as good. So we've got the left side. And I'm so glad that you folks are able to join me for this stream. It's just a lot of fun to interact with you guys. And honestly, so as I mentioned, yeah, I just started spoon carving a year ago. And normally, or before, I would hang my hat on being a hobbyist wood turner. And a wood turner being, I would make things like magic wands and wooden bowls, little boxes, platters. And so when I came across this book called Barn the Spoon, and then come across these really cool spoons, I couldn't wait to go home and start to carve my own. But then I also couldn't wait to go home and make a spoon on my lathe. And I did that. I really had a lot of fun. I'll show you it in a moment. I went for actually the largest spoon that I could make. That could be legitimately used in the kitchen, and I did that intentionally because I was using the lathe. And for those that don't know, the lathe is a machine. There's one behind me. That's the lathe, and it's a awesome machine to remove wood really quickly in a fun way. Like it's just. Could be very powerful and really aggressive, but also you can also create some really fine stuff on it, including well, magic wands and jewelry too, and actually spoons too. So I'll show you. Pardon my backside. I can show you. Here's a spoon quickly that I made out of walnut, and again, it's certainly a large one. And then I just, since we're talking spoons for a second, I digress. This is a spoon with milk paint on it, and really quite happy how that came along. So let's go back to spoons. This is I'm going to actually make the spoon much more, should we say, fine, by making it a bit more smooth. And you'll see here it's quite harsh, that spoon edge. So I'm going to basically put a bevel along the whole spoon, and it really will make the spoon much more friendly, much more soft, we'll say. Oops. All right, I have to be pretty fussy with the top there, so I apologize. But you know, I guess certainly shouldn't apologize. We're talking spoon carving here, folks. So generally, I'm never in a rush by any means. Alrighty, so let me just finish up this this bevel up here, and then we'll take a critical look at the whole spoon, and I'll be just looking for things that are not spoon-like. And then I know right off the bat that tail end is nasty. That's way too sharp. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to curl this in way over here. So I'm just going to remove a lot of this material off. It might be off camera here if let me just do some. I'm going to do some stop cuts, they're called, and I'm just digging in. And then let me just, oh, sorry. Not very good directing, I apologize. Really should blame the camera person, shouldn't I? Since I'm here at the handle, I might as well just work on making this a little bit of a refined swoop to the handle. The handles are tricky because the grain starts to change direction there. So, all right, so I have to address this a little bit more before I give you the final, because I can already see that has to go. When spoon carving, it's a constant revolving and looking at the spoon, because one part affects the other part, of course, because it's all attached. And as I look at this, I see, let me just give you a better profile there. This handle's too big, so I'll have to take some of that away. There's really quite a significant difference between those two sides. It is a left-handed spoon again, so I've got to keep in mind that that's part of the appeal for it, and I'm not sure you can appreciate that from your angle, to be honest. Can you see that? How it is a left-handed spoon? I know that when you put it in your hand and feel it, it certainly feels better coming from the left, and then from the right, it just feels awkward. So it's just that subtle curve there. I don't know, maybe lefties will appreciate that little bit of awkwardness in that spoon. My brother is left-handed. I think he would appreciate that. So folks, I am going to end it there. For now, let me just, I'll answer some of your questions here. I do need a beverage break and a bio break. What's your pocket knife of choice? So this is for those that want to head out, hey, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I do wish you well. Give me a follow. If you want to see the final result of the spoon, I certainly will have that available in my my next post. This is a Mora carving knife. I think it's a 106, I believe, and it just gives me a wonderful cut. You know what, folks? I do actually have to sharpen. Pardon me, I didn't get any dust on you, did I? Here is a strop, and just stropping the knife so that it carves once again perfectly. And you know what, so maybe what I will do is, since you are here, just take a critical look at that together, and maybe there's something so right there I see an issue, that it's not a nice transition. So let me clean that up. And the fact that this knife is recently sharpened, I know it'll perform really nicely, and it does already really start to grip nicely. So this is going to be a cooking knife. Oh, excuse me, cooking spoon. I'm so sorry. And why I say that is it's just not going to be crazy thin. It's going to be fairly beefy in the sense that it'll last the rigors of throwing stuff around in a frying pan or whatnot. And they do say that he carved it from a bigger spoon. You know, each successive carving is a little bit smaller. So I think I'm probably going to end up taking some more wood off of this side. It seems like a bit much. What I will be doing if you have to leave me, I will be stopping the video and then taking a break and then going into the hollowing of the spoon. I'll be using this hook knife. So that'll be again next post. I think if you give me a follow here, you might be notified that I'm on again. Whether that will be tonight or tomorrow, certainly tonight or tomorrow. I'm not sure about you folks, but it's the long weekend. Alrighty, so that curve right there is pretty distinct. So I guess I just made a very distinct looking spoon because we're beyond the point of me repurposing it into kindling. So yeah, my next step will be to carve inside here, and I'll just do a little bit of a demo. So I'm just essentially carving like this, and that'll probably take me a good 20 minutes of hollowing it out. And then I'll be doing some scraping of the spoon. The scraping is with a cabinet scraper. So that'll be on my next stream. And then the last step will be sanding, but I would not wish sanding on anybody. That would be cruel and unusual punishment. So folks, I want to wish you a wonderful evening. Have a great, safe, fun, enjoyable time. Do what you wish. Take care, folks.